Keir Starmer speaks extremely well, but his actions do not match what he says, the former border commander said. He stated that smuggling networks actively oppose government messages, persuading new entrants that Britain is the land of milk and honey. According to Saunders, these criminal organizations are confirming their claims. They're going to get their hotel rooms, money, and everything, he said, emphasizing how present assistance provisions will remain constant despite political bluster. A former top immigration official has issued a scathing assessment of Britain's ongoing migrant dilemma, as the number of migrants crossing the Channel this year exceeds 25,000. Welcome to the channel. Please subscribe for more news on UK politics. Kevin Saunders, who previously served as Chief Immigration Officer at the UK Border Force, cautioned that the amount could rise significantly before the end of the year. We have hit the 25,000 migrant mark, and I reckon by the end of the year we could see an awful lot more than that, he told the BBC. Saunders launched a blistering attack of the Prime Minister's response to the issue, claiming that government comments do not reflect reality on the ground. The former immigration head highlighted a key loophole in Britain's enforcement system, indicating that officers may easily discover people who have no right to stay yet cannot detain them. Immigration enforcement teams are doing an excellent job. They're going around and finding people who shouldn't be in the UK, Saunders said. However, he recognized a crucial barrier to deletions. The trouble is, they have very limited detention space. So they are effectively capturing them, transporting them to the local police station, and then having to release them because there's nowhere else to store them. The catch-and-release cycle renders enforcement measures ineffective. And that's it, that's the last we see of them, he said. Saunders pushed for consolidated accommodation facilities as a more feasible alternative to the current dispersed hotel system. He cited his own estimates to argue that military sites were more cost-effective. I did the sums for the one up here near where I live, and it was a lot cheaper, but it's not politically acceptable, so they didn't, he told me. The former official explicitly cited Wethersfield as an example of how lodging 400 people together is more efficient than dispersing them over other hotels around the country. Despite the economic benefits, Saunders stated that political reasons limit the implementation of such integrated accommodation solutions. Sir Keir Starmer has been warned that Labour is finished unless the government moves radically to address Britain's rising migrant crisis. Former head of public order Kevin Hurley told GB News that the growing resentment among Britons will continue until Labour acts. Following massive protests outside a migrant hotel in Epping, Britons have turned to the streets across the country to oppose the use of hotels to shelter illegal immigrants. Hurley highlighted the fears of Britons across the country, saying, "What we've learnt is that if Labour doesn't do something soon, they're done. Because there is a growing public dislike of uncontrolled illegal migration as opposed to legal migration, and because, of course, entering the UK without proper paperwork is a criminal violation. We're witnessing a rise in animosity across the country, particularly with these hotels and these essentially young men being stationed in people's villages, where they have different cultural values and views, and people don't like that." Hurley criticized the police's handling of the protests, citing the 2011 riots and claiming cops have still not gotten their mobilization processes correct. He stated, "The police have learnt that they need to become more adept at mobilizing assets and deploying them to crisis places in order to exert control over what is going on. The situation has worsened since 2011, since fewer cops are willing to conduct such duties. And it's clear, ironically, from recent episodes in Essex and the visit of the US president, that they still haven't figured out how to mobilize people across the country." Reflecting on the recent increase in protests against migrant motels, Hurley stated that the demonstrations will not be on the same level as 2011 since they are a different type of protest. He went on to say, "I don't think we'll see as much difficulty as we had in 2011, because this is a different form of riot or demonstration. These folks who are gathering around the hotels and other establishments are essentially ordinary residents of the surrounding areas. Yes, some troublemakers arrive, whether from an extreme right-wing organization or Antifa, but they are not the same as in 2011, when they were primarily opportunists, inner-city yobs who went looting." Hurley warned the government of the one lesson they needed to learn in dealing with the migrant problem, concluding that they needed to do something radical to stop record numbers crossing the Channel. Hurley told GB News, "So, in conclusion, I think the one lesson that comes out of this is that the government needs to do something radical to remove the appeal of the offer for people to come here. Putting them in hotels or multi-occupational homes won't stop it. The only way is to mimic what the Australians did, or even what Trump did in America, which has sent them straight to detention camps. Of course, they will be provided with basic food, a shelter over their heads, and medical care, but they will not be permitted to walk around and say, "Look at the wonderful life we are living." GB News host Ellie Costello interrogated Diana Johnson over Labour's social media spy unit, in the wake of growing protests against the use of migrant hostels. The Home Office minister told viewers that free speech is not being monitored, and that people may express their views within the law while speaking to GB News. The government apparently employed Whitehall's spy unit to target social media posts critical of migrant motels and two-tier policing. Civil servants apparently raised concerns with social media companies, saying that certain tweets carried concerning narratives. When asked if Britain's free speech is being monitored, Johnson answered, "No, we're not having our free speech monitored at all. It's absolutely right that people can express themselves within the law on social media. What I would say is that the police, particularly during the disorder last August, were absolutely correct in looking and monitoring what was being posted on social media in terms of riot organization, and having that information to allow them to plan what they needed to provide in terms of public safety." Ellie questioned Johnson on who decides which content is of a concerning type, noting that the task force is flagging content with a concerning narrative. Johnson told GB News, "Obviously there are issues with incitement, and if there are, criminal charges are being brought. It is certainly up to the police, as well as social media firms, to remove such content. But, again, free speech, the ability for people to openly voice their opinions, is an essential component of our democracy. It's not something that I see as being hampered by the efforts of the police, about which I am aware, in terms of keeping us safe and monitoring social media for anything that could lead to riots or disturbance, as we saw last summer." Host Stephen Dixon questioned Johnson on why police are looking at tweets rather than watching Britain's streets, citing the government's proposed elite police unit that will also monitor anti-migrant comments on social media. Johnson stated, "I don't believe that's a true picture of what's happening. If you recall, one of the difficulties last summer was the use of social media in relation to that unrest, as well as the fact that the police were watching what was going on, the call to go certain sites, and the subsequent disorder. The examination of what happened last summer revealed that we need to be more strategic about using social media to spot emerging problems. And that is what this new unit is all about." She went on to say, "It's about having a more coordinated response for police forces to understand where communities are being put in danger as a result of riots and violent disorder. It's clearly not about monitoring or investigating free speech and people's ability to express their views on immigration policy." A government spokeswoman said in a statement, "Free expression is a pillar of our democracy. The Online Safety Act protects it. Platforms must protect freedom of expression, and the Act does not limit what adults can say or see online, unless it is already prohibited offline. The government has no role in determining what actions platforms take on lawful content for adults. It is their responsibility, according to their own standards. However, we make no apologies for flagging anything on platforms that violates their own terms of service and can lead to violent disturbance on our streets, as we witnessed in the aftermath of the horrible Southport incident."